Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime, we come together on this podcast, and we discuss it. We then turn everything about that discussion over to our audience to make it better, to ask questions, or really answer our questions. And that's really the premise of this podcast. We are currently doing our New Year celebration that we always do, and which is where we watch a movie during the Christmas season, and then we do 2 retro animes that we either missed and wanted to watch, or watched and loved and want to share with the community. Things sometimes go awry. But to talk about the anime that we watched today, which is Trinity Blood, I need the help of my co-host. And usually I do a big introduction, but instead I'm just going to introduce Jeremy and ask him what his New Year resolution was and how he was doing.
New Year's resolution? Finish school.
All right. I knew you didn't. No,
That's
Jeremy's,
it.
Jeremy's going to be mad I picked this.
It hasn't started yet, so
Fair enough.
I have yet to fail this New Year resolution.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Actually, we watched The Witcher, and
Finished it.
we finished it. It was fantastic, but I think we got a different experience than probably 99.9% of people, because we happened to watch the last episode first by accident and thought it was episode 1. So we got a lot of mystery, and we got a lot of action, and we got a lot of intrigue, and we had no idea, like I said, that this was not episode 1. And so we kept waiting for more information about these characters, and boy, were we getting it, from episodes 2 through 7. And then when we finally got to there are 8 episodes, right?
Yeah.
No, that's Mandalorian. Is it 8 too?
Yeah. Isn't it?
Okay.
It's somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, I
it's
thought it was
Well,
8.
when we got to the second to the last episode, we realized, because we started the last episode and we'd already seen the intro, and I was like, okay, they're refreshing our memory. They're gonna switch over to what happens after. And they didn't, and we kept watching for like 10 minutes, and I kept waiting, and then we decided, okay, let's go check episode 1, because I think we really screwed up here. And actually, I think it might have been better than watching it from the first episode to the end. I want to give Witcher like a 95%. Just from our experience watching it, it was so good that way. I have no idea what it must be like watching it from the first episode.
I remember watching the first 2 episodes and being really confused, and that it wasn't. I actually had to read somewhere the events are happening at separate times. Like, these are separate timelines, and that they eventually converge. I was like, oh, okay, now I get it, because I was like, I don't get how this is fitting together. This doesn't make sense. Yeah,
I didn't really experience much of that at all. I think after watching the last episode and then watching episodes 2 and 3, it just kind of clicked that, they're in sequence but out of timeline. This is really cool. Maybe they should have just done it that way. That would be cool.
All right, so we also have our other co-host. He's a jerk, Jason. What were your New Year's resolutions?
I don't believe in your New Year's resolutions because
I told you he was a jerk.
They're just gonna fail anyway. So why make promises I'm gonna break? Yeah.
It's like
So I don't have one.
It's fun. All right, so how you been?
Been pretty good. So I got my kid a VR headset for Christmas, and I bought a game called Asgard's Wrath, and
I heard
it
about
is
that one.
literally everything that I'd want in a fantasy game in VR. Like, so far, everything I've ever wanted in a fantasy game with combat. This blows away Skyrim as far as VR. The puzzles are fun, the combat's interesting, and it's a little disorienting at first as far as just VR because it's my real first experience besides Beat Saber, which is a blast, by the way. But yeah, after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, my eyes are just tired. My head starts to hurt, and my back is hurting from standing so much. But yeah, it's a fantastic game.
That's really cool. Is I can't remember for sure. Is that one where they did a little bit less teleportation for movement, and they actually give you a freedom to move?
You can choose. No, there is no teleportation. It's all movement with the stick.
Sweet.
So, and it's wherever
Awesome.
you're facing. So if you spin your body and you move forward, you'll go that direction. Or if you spin that way and move forward, you'll go that direction. Which actually feels really intuitive in combat. So if someone passes to your left, you just spin your body and then you can continue to move back and forth with the stick. Also, you're a god and you take control of your champions, and that's how you do the combat. But when you go into god form, you go into this top-down view of the area, and you can solve puzzles and like do things to get your guy to the next area. You can make different things and like companions and stuff. So it's a blast.
Sweet.
And does that have to be hooked up to the computer? That one or?
Yeah, it's a Rift only. Yeah, it's a Rift exclusive. So the Quest has what's called Oculus Link, because I bought a Quest, and Link turns your Quest into a Rift.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you just have to plug it into your machine with a 3.0 USB cord, and it plays just like a Rift.
Nice.
So yeah, I can unplug it. I can go to a different room if I want, play Quest games, come back, plug it back into my machine, and then I can play older VR games such as The Forest, which is terrifying in VR.
Oh yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
All right. And my name is Troy. My New Year's resolution is to only drink water for 1 year. I'm 11 days in, and I feel like I'm about to break.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really hard one, I can imagine.
I miss milk, which is the real reason I did. I gotta quit drinking so much milk, and I miss it so much.
Oh.
Is there a health detriment to drinking so much milk?
Yeah, it's lactose, it's sugar.
Well, I mean,
not great for you in
also
huge amounts.
pasteurized.
Oh, you stop! Just nope. What I've been watching, I finished season 2 of Haikyuu. I think I'm probably not saying that right. It's the volleyball anime. Guys, I know we had mixed feelings on the basketball anime. The volleyball one is fantastic. No one has powers. No one's magical and disappears on the court. But it is, by the end, I was like cheering for the game. And then they ended the season. And there's only 2 seasons on Netflix. And they're like, at the end, they're like, we're going to the championship game tomorrow. End of season. And I'm like, no! And then also the new. I finally sat down and been watching the new DuckTales on Disney Plus, and it's fantastic. It's one of the best cartoons of the year.
Make it rain.
I've never laughed so hard at a villain in a cartoon as Glomgor. He's so good. But it's really well written. I watched the Darkwing Duck episode. It was really meta, but also like a really good introduction to Darkwing Duck into this universe, and now Darkwing Duck actually fits into the DuckTales universe instead of just kind of being added on at the end. Donald's in it. It's really good, and they gave the 3 nephews separate personalities. They're not just Huey, Dewey, and Louie. There's Huey, there's Dewey, and there's Louie, and they're all very separate characters. And it's such a bit.
I loved Darkwing Duck as a kid.
Oh yeah,
they must be making that too. And
oh sweet.
I heard there's rumors of certain Tailspin. There's already been 1 Tailspin character in DuckTales, and there's supposed to be 2 more coming next season. And
nice.
Tailspin was my jam.
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right, let's go on to our anime. We put it off long enough. We made everyone watch it. Jason made us watch it. We should talk about it. So we did watch Trinity Blood. This is an older anime. I didn't look up any stats on it. I do remember watching it early 2000s on Adult Swim in my basement. Not much more than that. Like we said at the end of last episode, it's a Trigun plus Hellsing mashup. Is and very gothic, very I want to sell shirts at Hot Topics. So let's start with our non-spoiler review. Jason, what did you think?
So when I watched it, when I was first getting into anime back in the early 2000s, like I really enjoyed this anime. Like I remember it fondly. And today I feel like I was eating stale bread. It wasn't, I didn't hate it because I think there was a lot of nostalgia there, but I didn't like it. It was very middle of the road as far as a power fantasy, but there was just, they were trying to fit too many things together. And the criticism that I heard that it was someone trying to capitalize on the success of Trigun and Hellsing really kind of rang through. And I didn't like that, but I had to admit that, yeah, this is fairly low effort as far as storytelling. So I think there's a lot of missed potential here because I like the world that we have here. But yeah, it wasn't fantastic.
All right, Jeremy, how about you?
I really wanted to see this. I remember when it came out on Adult Swim, I watched the first episode, and I never got around to watching the rest, but I always remembered it. And I thought this would be so cool. You know, he really did seem like Vash, just especially in that first episode, how he's kind of bumbling and nice, but then at the end, you know, super tough and cool. But yeah, they really didn't deliver. And I know we're stopping just halfway through the first season, so there's a lot of story left to go through and a lot of opportunity for them to deliver. But at this point, I'm not even interested in finishing it. It's just not interesting at all.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with these guys. I've seen this before, and I remember it very fondly with rose-tinted goggles of nostalgia. Mm. And then I turned on the first episode and was like, "Oh, this is not good."
Yeah.
And it was really a bummer. And I honestly spent like the entire time because I do actually go back and watch Trigun pretty frequently, like once every 2 years or so. And so I just kept thinking about Trigun and like I wish I was watching Trigun
Yes.
as versus the main character, which probably isn't fair to it. You know, Trigun's a masterpiece. It's one of the elite animes of our time, or my time, however you want to say that. But,
us three time.
Yeah, but this was rough. It was shallow. They would like jump into story beats or themes that they hadn't set up and then abandoned just as quickly. Like for one story arc, it's like, let's do a very Trigun nobody dies theme, and then like the next episode, like, yeah, but that who cares? We don't want to have to actually deal with that.
Yeah.
And that was rough. So not great for me. Let's go on to the opening and closing. What do you guys think of those?
I sat through the opening once, and I've never been so motivated to skip an opening because of the song ever. And it's just the visuals aren't great because they're just weird clips from episodes that don't make any sense strung together. The music is bad. And
it's so
is
80s.
probably the first anime that I liked the exit better than the opening.
Yeah, it was horrible. I didn't like the exit or the opening. And it's funny too because the opening feels so 80s. It's so 80s, and that's the weirdest thing because the anime's not. But
I thought it felt 90s. That's the vibe.
Really? Oh man, to me that just screamed 80s. But the outro, it was just as bad for me. Oh god, I hated the outro too. It was just I feel really bad because I want to say something good about this anime, but I got nothing.
Yeah, the intro was especially rough because, like Jason said, the visuals are just like random clips from random episodes that have no through line, no themes, no nothing, and then the music is not great. And the ending's a little better because at least like they're showing the two characters kind of like having their own version of Twilight, which happened after this anime, so that's not really a fair joke. But yeah, and it was rough. One thing I want to add: one time, my daughter sat down. She watched like 20 minutes of it with me. She turned to me and was like, "With all this drama, is this the last episode?" And I'm like, "No, this is the second episode."
Yep.
All right. Let's go on to Spoiler Town. We're going to be spoiling this anime for those of you who didn't watch it. Congratulations, you smarties. And
It's
we are
14 episodes, so
we're going to go through the first 14 episodes. Only the first 14 episodes. That's all we watched, and that's all we will be watching for this, retro anime pick.
Oh, but wait, I was gonna pick the next half as my pick for the next. Just kidding.
It's funny that that's kind of true, though.
I was till I watched it. Ugh.
Okay, so spoiler warning has been dropped. We get like this quick intro that is hard to understand what's going on. They're like, there's a nuclear apocalypse, and now centuries later, a new bad guy has risen up and started war with humans, and it's vampires. In this, they're called Methuselah, but they also call themselves vampires. And then there's Terrans, but they're also called humans. So that way you can't be confused.
Oh yeah, that helps to keep you from being confused.
And this is a very like gothic fantasy, but it's all based on like sci-fi. Like the vampires are scientifically vampires. They're not, the spawn of the devil or anything like that. Like in Castlevania, they are literally like scientific creations, and so there's this new race of superhumans who are actually just vampires, and they still follow all the vampire rules because when you're genetically modifying yourself into a super species, you put silver in as a weakness for fun.
Yeah, or exposure to sunlight.
Yeah, no sunlight for us.
Yeah. But what about the robots? Like, I remember seeing this in the first episode and being like, wait a minute, they have automatons? The humans have automatons that are like running around with gun arms and stuff? Why do we not see that outside of the church? Like, it's just, it bugs me. When you have that kind of technology and it's being used in warfare, it would propagate down.
Well,
anyways.
There is, so in this world there is no like standing armies of governments. The only ones with military force is the Vatican and this other group, the Empire.
Sure. But I'm wondering like why none of the people are benefiting from the technologies that seem so advanced.
Yeah, everyone's living in like Victorian England times, right?
Yeah, but they have freaking androids. Well, they have an android.
And airships, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, speaking of airships, our main character is flying on one on a trip. And we meet him. His name is Abel Nightroad.
Yes.
Man, that is a name. But yeah, his name is Abel. And what did you guys think of Abel?
Everything about him makes me want to like him, but he's just not interesting. I think is the best way to put it. I don't know. It feels like the voice actor in the dub did his best to portray him the way he was intended to be portrayed. But because, he's so hypocritical in his own thinking, he has no real direction except I want to do good, whatever that means in this world. It's really tough to make any sort of storytelling connection with the guy as far as like a likable character. So yeah, like I said, I remember really liking this character 10 years ago, and even up until I started watching this anime, and then this first episode, I'm like, ooh. And then you guys were like, complaining about him a bit, and I'm like, no, it gets better. He's the stoic guy. No, it's not.
All right, Jeremy, how about you?
It was really interesting because I thought that he was going the direction of Vash the Stampede. I thought that, he had this whole silly exterior that was just a facade, and he was kind of a badass underneath, and that was going to be consistent, but it didn't seem to be consistent. I couldn't even tell when at certain times when he would enter combat whether he was still being the idiot or if he was actually putting his effort into it and failing. And it was really off-putting because you couldn't have a clear delineation between the facade and the real person. It was confusing. Also, one of the issues that I had with him was, like you mentioned, Jason, his hypocrisy. In the sub, he just kept going on and on about how, because of his sins and because of his past, his job is now to protect humans, to keep them alive, save their lives. And I don't know where this goes with the rest, but like his way of doing that, he's also vowed not to kill. And I didn't find that out for several episodes, of course, because he doesn't mention it. In fact, it seems like he's going around killing vampires with no problem, no qualms.
To specify, in my notes, I have it written down in this first episode, he tears the vampire's heart out.
Yeah. He has no problem.
Throwing that out there.
Right, exactly. And so like I was going into this with that sort of, okay, it's like Vash the Stampede, but it's not, because this guy will kill. He is a badass. And then it just confused me so bad. So yeah, I don't like him because he doesn't make sense. I can't place him. I can't figure him out.
Yeah, I'm basically in full agreement with Jeremy. I had so fond memories of this guy, and I thought he was Vash the Stampede, Yoda, this aged ancient guy. They hint at he has ancientness to him, or a storied history. He meets a character that's an adult now, and when she's a child, he hasn't aged, so we know he's at least quite old. And I thought he was doing this whole bumbling act that these characters do to hide their wisdom. And the thing about Vash is he bumbles into a situation, but he's never not 100% in control of it. He's so proficient and awesome that like he'll fall down and knock over a table, but it falls down right at the right time to hit a bad guy's foot, so his gun goes the wrong way, right? And you're like, oh, he tripped on purpose. There's a scene where Abel walks up to the gates of the Vatican. They're like, okay, where's your identification? He's like, I lost it. And I'm like, wait, did you really lose it? Are you actually an idiot who can't get into his Vatican? He's wearing full priest clothes, and they're like, we don't know you.
Yeah.
We're not letting you in. And I'm like, this isn't helping any situation. There's no ulterior thing here. I spent this entire anime trying to figure out who the real Abel Nightroad is, and I still don't know. I don't know if I ever would find out. Is he a serious, somber guy who slaps a young woman because he's upset with her in the face? Or is he a bumbling nice guy who just like a sandwich because that would be the best ever? I don't know.
Or like 13 cubes of sugar, in his tea. Because that's really important to bring up multiple times.
From what I can remember, we don't really find out who Abel is until like episode 27. Like it's like, yeah, it's near the end that you really find out who he is.
And to further like emphasize your point, Troy, in the first episode where we're really supposed to get to grips with who Abel is, he does one of those bumbling trip things, and it shows his eyes narrow as he's falling, and he shoots some steam vents behind the vampire, showing that, yes, his bumbling is, in fact, completely under his control.
Sometimes.
Except for then...
Yeah, but exactly. But then later, it's totally not.
In the same episode, he falls out of the airplane, and he's like, oh, thank God that could happen. Like, he didn't know. Exactly. And he's by himself at that time, so there's, like, no one to put on a show for. He just falls out of the airship, and it saves his life, and he's like, woo! Got lucky on that one.
Yeah.
It's the inconsistency that made it really hard to get attached to him when I'm trying to like, okay, what kind of character are you?
Well, yeah, it does this a lot. Like he falls off of this like balcony, and then like these huge rocks seem to come down on top of him, and then like 10 minutes later, he's riding in on a boat, and it's like, okay, one, you're not even wet. Two, how are you not injured? And three, you're in a boat. Where'd you find that?
Yep. The plot.
Right.
Do you think he bought a boat?
Oh God.
Okay.
Isn't that money for a boat?
All right, we're gonna go forward. He meets in the intro. We're introduced to him, and he's talking to a nice waitress, and they're on this airship. She goes to serve the captain and the other pilots of the airship, and a vampire attacks. He kills the pilot, the captain, takes over the ship. He's gonna kill her, or he's like, "I'm gonna kill you later." But either way, Abel comes in and interrupts them and rescues her, and they run away. And they go to a sub-level to take over the thing. And he has credentials that let him take control of the airship because this airship's flying to Rome, to the Vatican. And then we jump.
Mad programming skills, too.
Right. And he has, he has definitely a past. But the Vatican are then alerted to, hey, a vampire is taking over airship. He's going on a kamikaze mission to ram us. What should we do about it? And we meet 3 new characters. We're going to talk about them all at once. The one that's most important to us is actually Catalina. She is the sister and one of the advisors to the Pope. And then there's her brother, Francesco, and then the actual Pope. Catalina is the boss of Abel and runs kind of
the AX.
Yeah, the AX, the special ops of priest with powers, fighting ability to battle vampire threats. Whereas Francesco runs the Inquisition, which is basically the army of the Vatican. And if she's a scalpel, he's a hammer, in the way they like to deal with issues. And then the Pope is a wet blanket.
Yes.
So, what are your guys' thoughts on these 3 characters, either as a group or anything you want to especially call out with them?
My thoughts are very similar to Jeremy's on the Pope, so I'll let him describe that. But the head of the Inquisition, he just screams generic bad guy. Like there's nothing interesting about him at all. Catalina, I thought she was okay in the first couple of episodes, but as the episodes go on, she's just more and more helpless. And it doesn't seem like someone in her position in this highly skilled, organized organization, she would be so helpless. Like I would have expected her to have at least some combat capability, or at least be armed in some of these situations. And it's like that just seems like something that a high level of official of some sort of military outfit like this would be, but
clearly nepotism because of who her brother is.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that's I guess Catalina would be the best out of the 3 because she's kind of interesting, but we don't get to see like much about her. So
Mm-hmm. I kind of thought there was a lot of potential here when I was first introduced to these characters, because there's obviously serious conflict going on and competition between the 2 sides. You know, like you mentioned, Troy, the scalpel and the hammer. And I didn't know like what else was at stake. Are they both gunning for the seat of the Pope? Or obviously, because he's such a sniveling little whiny brat, he's way too old to behave the way he behaves, especially in the position he's in. It's super obvious that he's just kind of a figurehead. And so if he's going to be a figurehead, obviously they're vying for control over who's going to control the head, right? And I thought that had a lot of potential to be interesting, but it just wasn't. Like the way that they chose to present it, it just wasn't. And they did try to bring in later another character to show that, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Everybody's vying for power here. But it just, I don't know, the writing and choices that they made for the characters just made them an irritant to me rather than interesting.
There's things presented that might have more payoff in the second half of this. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to say like, oh, this character didn't arc all the way, or I didn't like
Yeah.
where his character went, and so to keep that in mind.
That's
Look,
fair.
my issues with the three characters is the inconsistencies. I don't understand Catalina and Abel's relationship. They seem like they're obviously long friends, and she really cares about him. But then he comes in for a mission, she's like, "You suck," and you have to go on sucky missions. And but then they always end up being important. Did she know that? Is she just messing with him? I had a hard time grasping how she's playing that. Francisco, I like the idea of a guy who's war hungry but not evil. I'm not convinced he's fully evil. He might be. I don't remember how this story ends. But I like the idea of I'm just convinced the vampires are evil, and I think this is the right thing to do, and I'm trying to do the right thing, which is probably terrible, but not from an evil point of place that he's coming from. Except for at one part of the story, he gets his sister arrested, then finds out she's 100% correct, and there's zero consequence for him. There's everyone's like, no, it's fine. You completely just arrested your sister and accused her of treason, and you were completely wrong, and she's still right, but you're still not listening to her, and no one's caring. No one's like, hey, remember how yesterday you arrested me when I tried to stop murder?
Yeah.
So whatever. And while the Pope is a little annoying, especially with the dub voice actor, it's kind of rough. He comes off very high pitched, very snivelly. I don't know what to do. I like the, but if I remember right, I think there's payoff for the Pope that like he eventually gets a backbone and stands up for himself and makes his own decisions. I like that setup, but I do agree the character is super rough in these 14 episodes. All right, back to the story. Abel fights the vampire. He falls out of the airship. He climbs up to the top. The vampire runs up to the top too. They have one more battle, and Abel's like, "Oh, by the way, just so you know, I'm a Kruznik." And he's like, I don't know what that is. He's like, "Oh, I'm a vampire who eats vampires." And he activates. He does it by activating nanobots within him. He says, nanobots unleash
20%.
Yeah.
40%. And then he transforms into a very vampire form. His hair sticks up straight. He grows a red scythe. Vampire blood like automatically flows into him. He doesn't even have to bite them to drink it. It just like he absorbs it naturally. And he rips this guy's heart out.
I wouldn't say it would naturally, but
well, fair enough.
He absorbs it unnaturally.
As cool as his scythe looks, the way he wields it, or at least the animation, it just makes it awkward and just really terrible to watch.
This has got to be like on the forefront of adding CG into anime, because there's a couple things that are like, sticks out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked the concept the first time, and also in episode 1, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. All right.
Yeah.
But then when in episode 2, he repeats the line after transforming, and then in episode 3, he repeats the line after transforming. Am I watching Sailor Moon? Like, what is going on here? And it just completely lost the novelty and my interest. Because, I'm a vampire that sucks the blood of other vampires. I know. Everybody knows now. Shut up and do what you're supposed to do.
I like the idea that like he practices that speech in the mirror and is like, okay, when I meet a vampire tomorrow, this is what we'll say.
That's right, exactly. Well, he's got it down. Give him that.
The Vatican shoots a missile at them, and after they get back in control of the airship, and they're able to dive under it, and they survive, and they go to Rome safely. And he talks to Catalina that the Rosencreut. It's so much fun trying to spell some of this stuff. The Rosencreut group has returned, and that they're behind this. I hate the Rosencreut group because they're behind everything, and every time something happens, they're like, "Oh my God, it's the Rosencreut group again!" No, it's just been them. 10 episodes now, and you haven't told anyone. You're not like, "Hey, by the way, everyone, this is happening." Their plot is always the same. The entire anime, this group is like, we're going to start a human vampire war. and at no point are the humans and vampires like, hey, just so you guys know, there's a group trying to start a war. We should be cool.
And both sides know about them too.
Yep,
That's
both sides
so
are
crazy.
fully aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the Empire seems like they are very like true racist kind of Empire people.
Yeah,
Because
and
like
so is the other
even
side.
even the non-Rosencreutz, they're very high and mighty, and that Terrans are just cattle, and that there seems to be this even though for some reason like there's always humans killed these vampires, or we see the humans kill these vampires, and it's like but we're so much better, and it's like okay, but
And the humans seem to have like if you see a vampire, it's cool to just kill it.
right.
On sight. Like there's no question about it. So clearly things are not in good relation. But then the leaders of the group are like, oh yeah, I mean, you can send a diplomat over here. It's cool.
Well, and I'm also a little bit lost on, is it absolutely necessary for the vampires? Obviously it's not, because there's one point where a particular vampire says we don't have to drink blood. We can actually get what we need from, and he holds up a glass, which I don't know if it's filled with wine or bottled blood. I don't know.
He put a pill in it, and it like turned
Is that what it
into
was?
a red liquid, and he drank it. He was like, "This is enough."
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, they don't have to drink Terran blood, so why do they choose to? Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, the whole thing is just, ugh.
Guys, I need to pause the podcast. Jason, what does your shirt say?
Oh,
You just stretched, and I saw it.
Otaku.
Otaku. Very nice.
Obsessed with anime and manga. That's awesome.
Man, I didn't know we were dressing thematically for the podcast today.
my son got me that for Father's Day, I think.
That's great.
Very cool. All right, I'll move us on to the next episode. I'm kind of gonna jump through the plot. It's basically to introduce that one of the priests that Abel works with is a robot called Trace, and he has guns. They call him Gunslinger, and he likes to shoot things, and he's very good. Whenever they need something shot, they call him, and he does it.
You got it covered. It's
And
basically a character.
In the most robotic way, by the way.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of old Gunslinger here?
He looked like they tried to take the concept of equilibrium,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they paid like $10 to someone to animate it. So the animation was just it was a picture that they put flashes on. It's like, okay, good job, guys. The movement was just terrible. And then there's one point where he's like, I'm out of bullets, I can't kill you, sorry about that. And then like a threat comes, he's like, oh, boom, 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 boom. It's like, wait, but you're a robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm confused.
I like that. Wait, what do you mean you're confused? That actually made perfect sense.
Well, I mean, it questions whether or not he's an AI that makes decisions on his own, or whether or not he's just simply an automaton that follows instruction.
Right. It was clearly showing he has a humanity to him.
Nowhere else in the other 13 episodes does he do anything else like this.
Yeah, it never pays off.
There's no payoff. No. I like it at the moment.
Payoff.
I'm like, oh, cool. I like this character. And then from the rest of the time, they're like, hey, we just need someone to shoot things. Can you show up? Yes.
My orders. Why is there only one?
He's
It seems really
expensive?
effective. We should make more.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Make
even
an
in the
army of them.
flashbacks. Yeah, in the flashbacks, it looks like they have an army of automaton robots that are fighting the vampires. They don't look as advanced as him, but they look like an army.
Oh, okay.
In the
It couldn't
first
have been that
episode,
far in the
it shows
past
that.
then, because the Earth, everyone nuked each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, he was specifically fighting vampires, so this would be after the nukes, when the robots were dressed up in the weird like medieval armor, and a vampire leaped up, attacked the robot, and there was a massive explosion. And I was thinking,
are you talking about the one with the cannon arms?
Yeah, in the
I
first
think
episode,
that was being driven by somebody. I don't think that was a robot.
His battle armor. Okay.
Yeah.
Even so, I still, the same question stands. Like, why is there only one of him? Even if he's expensive, the church has always been like the richest place. I'm sure they've got the money they need to make more.
Listen, I don't think this is worth dwelling on.
Yeah, it's not a plot hole just because they don't answer it, Jeremy.
I don't know. I mean, I think this is such a big thing in the context of they don't let the technology exist in the world. The world is not built in a believable way. And that just...
It's supposed to be post-apocalyptic. Maybe they only found one working one and they reprogrammed it. They don't know how to make more.
I honestly have a theory
about
this because obviously there's nanobots inside Abel and no one else is like injecting nanobots or working with nanobot technology. I think a lot of their technology is like left over and then they've lost the ability to recreate it. So he's probably older and from a different time. They found a way to reprogram him and make him a priest and make him effective, but there's not like a production line where they can go make more.
He sure misses a lot for a robot, by the way.
Yeah, he does.
How dare you?
I would have liked it if they mentioned that. Also, why does he have guns, like just those 2 pistols, and he reloads them with little automated arm reloaders that come out of his wrist?
That's why I said I think this is equilibrium wanting to be.
Jeremy, you cannot pick apart every little thing. We have 14 episodes to get through.
We lost
losing it a little bit. So I'm just going to push forward. So in this episode, they find a little girl. She can make you fall asleep and have crazy nightmare dreams and hallucinate and kill things. And basically, Gunslinger's like, she's escaping. When she went to the bathroom, I'm going to kill her. And Abel's like, no, please, I won't let you. And he's like, okay, well, then I'm going to kill you because I can do that. And they knock him out. She gets abducted anyway by vampires. Abel and Gunslinger go and rescue her. Abel kills or almost kills another vampire. And then, like Jason said, they come out and he's like, I'm out of bullets, so I can't kill the little girl. And I guess I'm never going to have bullets again, so you're safe. And then the vampire lady shows up and he shoots her and Abel's like, you had bullets the whole time. Which, again, I liked this moment because it was like, okay, now I know that this robot has humanity. He's not just a AI driven by orders.
Actually, now there's...
Should have been if Abel just narrowed his eyes. If that's all they did in response. They didn't have Abel call it out. They just showed a shot of him looking over at the robot guy and kind of narrowing his eye. Oh, God, it killed me that he called it out.
Actually, now there's 2 things about this episode that pissed me off. So, yeah, not only the whole humanity of the robot is never talked about again, but I forgot about this little girl that apparently she was the pinnacle to this huge plot of other like psychics that they were going to use as a terror weapon, and this never heard from again.
She is a witch who's actually a mutant. They call her a witch, but then she's like, I'm just a mutant.
Right, but apparently there was this whole other like deep plot that she was going to be a part of.
I wasn't arguing. I was just filling in information. All right, next episode. Because we need a really gratuitous shower scene to meet this character, she's recently committed a murder and has to think about it for like 5 minutes at the beginning of this episode in a hot shower. This is Esther. Sister Esther, she's a nun.
You know it's a 90s anime.
Yes.
And if there was one nun that we didn't need of it, it was this one. There were a lot better nuns.
This was my favorite 5 minutes of the anime. No, I like Esther, cute redhead. I'm down for it. All right. What'd you guys think of Esther?
Whiny.
I didn't say in one word, just to make it clear. You can use any amount of words you want.
She, we didn't get enough time with her, so she ended up being a plot device after plot device. Because she goes from this, I murdered someone, I'm irredeemable, to now I'm completely defenseless and I need people to look out for me, to I want to be in the fray, and I almost started a war, sorry. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't.
It's even worse than that. She's actually one of the most inconsistent characters because she starts off with, I'm going to murder these bad guys. And then she jumps to, I want a world where no one kills anybody. Then she joins the Vatican military group designed to battle vampires. Is like, I want to go kill these mofos. Let me in on this mission. Doesn't kill him and then tells him what I dream about is peace between vampires and humans. Woman, you ran into his bedroom with a shotgun to kill him. What are you talking about? When were you
Yep.
dreaming about that? Okay, that's my rant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You summed it up for me, Troy. So go ahead, Jeremy.
No, that was great. No, I thought when she first showed up, I thought there was going to be some really interesting thing because, you know, they showed her as a little girl and the nun that was taking care of her was like, oh, yeah, this birthmark, this means that you're special and there's this star thing and you're a child of prophecy. But the sheer amount of emotion that they tried to pack into this episode revolving around her and the guy that was her accomplice and then revolving around her and the count himself was just, it felt way too strong for me.
There was no payoff either.
Yeah. It felt contrived and then it fell flat. It was very unpleasant.
All right. Abel comes to this city. This is it's called Ishtar, and it's a city in between the two nations, and it's independent. It doesn't want to get involved in the war, even though the leader's a vampire, but he was married to a human. Abel gets there, and basically he's like, wow, this city really sucks. This used to be like an awesome city, and now there's just like no one's around. He sees crime on the streets, or really he sees cops beating up innocent people, we assume. So it's bad. And then also the leader of the city, the Marquis, shows up, and he basically Abel gets arrested immediately and taken to him. And they go to the Marquis's house, and this vampire's like, hey, I allow there to be a Catholic church here that helps with the human citizens and keeps things quiet, but you will follow rules. You will not cause trouble. The last person who did not do well. Hint, hint, she did.
And then immediately burns down the cathedral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so Esther comes and gets Abel. They talk about like, oh yeah, the last sister here was murdered, and I'm so upset about it. Abel finds her talking with a guy named Diedrich, who we're going to talk about in a minute. And then the cops come, kill Diedrich, and she's like, okay, well, I'll just shoot the cops. And Abel stops her. She gets arrested for murder, and Abel's like, well, you got to arrest me too. And so they do, and then they burn down the church. We do need to talk about Diedrich, though, because he's not really dead.
Why?
And he's not, well, because he's the puppet master. He's the main villain of this story so far, even though I assume it's the blonde guy that we see later. Any thoughts on the puppet master / Diedrich?
He's just the most generic bad guy. I am bad, and I want to see.
There are like 3 or 4 like bad guy vampires in charge of stuff, and in a week, gun to my head, I could not tell you the difference between them. Like this one is in charge, and then this guy's also in charge. I don't know.
Yeah, and we are the Rosencreutz, and we're going to ascend the world and by creating war, and it's like their goals just do not seem clear or consistent whatsoever. But this, him as the character of her friend at this time was fairly convincing, but him as a whole throughout this anime, I'm just like, every time he shows up, it's like, I'm here to show that I'm a bad guy.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that was really weird for me for this character is that I thought he was a human. I really thought he was a human until he showed up later, because there's a scene where he's sitting at the station programming some stuff, and the Marquis says, "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. You're not in any danger." And he's talking to him like he's a human. And then the kid shows up, and she's talking to him like he's a human. He's her accomplice. Mm-hmm. Everything seemed like he's a human. And then he just gets riddled with bullets. Now I did see vampires die from Gunslinger previously, but they were missing like body parts. His bullets weren't regular bullets. I anticipated that the bullets these police were using were just regular bullets because it looked like they just pierced straight through him and made little tiny holes. And so I thought, oh, okay, it's enough to kill a human. So I was completely thrown for a loop later because I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like the Rosenkreutz human too? Like what's okay? He's obviously a vampire, but that is not what you gave me the impression of this whole time.
Well, which was his thing. I was pretending to be a human to both of you. Ha 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 ha.
Seriously, like, oh my god, because they don't transform. So how did he hide his ears and his teeth?
He's the puppet master.
Yeah. Oh god. I mean, you'd think another vampire could smell that he's not a human.
No, vampires don't have any sense of smell in this.
Oh, I don't believe that.
I made that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got the vulnerabilities.
Well, okay, but you also can't assume they have super smelling just because most vampires do.
That's true. That's true.
All right.
Yeah, they never mention it. So
Plot. More plot happens. Abel and Esther are arrested. Esther is given a very pretty dress to wear, and they are forced to have dinner with the Marquis, and he's like, yo, I'm all about revenge. I had a human wife. She would like help people and also was a computer programmer, and she built this satellite to give electricity to the city, and then I'm pretty sure that she was murdered by the Catholic Church.
no, he said the people of the town.
He thought the people of the town took her, but when he found out her satellite program was shut down by the Vatican, so then he was insinuating that that's why she died.
Okay.
Yeah, they instigated the crowd.
Don't worry about it. I was for sure like, oh, I see what they're setting up. She's gonna be the nun that was killed at the beginning that Esther was getting revenge on, and no, we never find out what happened to her. There's no resolution to this mystery because he doesn't say she died. She just disappeared.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's like, now I'm going to take her satellite thing and I'm going to use it to shoot everybody. Screw it. And he
Is this GoldenEye?
He turns it on and it starts shooting both sides. It starts shooting vampires and humans. And he's like, wait, what's going on? And then Diedrich appears in a hologram. He's like, hi, I'm the mastermind behind everything. I put a bug in here. I manipulated both of you to do this because you both love revenge. You're idiots. Revenge is bad. Which, by the way, Abel's been running around like, quit getting revenge. And this bad guy's like, I can't believe you guys wanted revenge. You're so dumb.
My question is I gotta stop asking questions. If he's this amazing at programming that he set up this booby trap, why didn't he just turn it on to begin with and start firing?
Oh, you missed something. Not only does he tell them all this, he then says, here's the turn-off code. He literally gives them the code to turn it off, which I think ends up being false.
Right.
But it's like, hey, here, you can turn it off. He wanted to play him. He wanted the con. He went for the long con, man. It wasn't just about... And also, you gotta remember, this is about starting a war. So he needs a vampire to kill humans, and he needs humans to kill vampires. And it has to look like they did it on their own. It can't be by his own.
Not that that's the plot of every single terrorist act throughout the entire 14 episodes.
Yep. And no one figures it. Esther, when she gets the turn-off code, tries to enter it. The Marquis is like, well, no, I have to kill you now that you know how to stop this plan, even though it's totally not going the way I want. I can't let you stop it now. And Abel comes in. Gunslinger, Trace shows up and frees Abel because he has that kind of time. And then Trace leaves. Like, no, I'm not going to keep helping with this, or he's going to take on the guards. So Abel goes, he transforms, he
gives a speech.
I'm a vampire who drinks vampires.
Yep.
Esther doesn't see him or look at him at this, but she's there for it, and later seems surprised by this, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Look, Abel ends up turning off the computer because he's like, don't worry, I'm United States Air Force. And there's his old code, which apparently... And I think that was on purpose. I think that like was built into the system to get able to do this.
Yeah, because he tells her, put in the code that he gave you, and then it doesn't work.
And when she tells him, he's like, I know who did this, and I know how they're messing with us. I'll use my Air Force code. Turns
His
it
super
off.
hacking skills.
The Marquis stabs himself and then is dying and is like, hey, if you want to shoot me, that's cool, because I know how much we love revenge. And then she hugs him and pretends to be his wife.
That would have been a better line.
And he dies. And Esther and Abel go back to Rome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the code was to self-destruct it, and that's why he didn't want it to be put in. He'd rather see the world burn than what his wife left behind. I understood that part, but just, the whole story. God, and the way she cradled him, like you said, pretending to be his wife, I was like, there's no way that this character would have such a change of heart so quickly.
And can we talk about the background scale of death throughout this 14 episodes? Like, there are so many side people that are, unseen deaths. It's like they are leveling cities, and it's like, oh well, we won't retaliate.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
At one point, a terrorist bomb goes off, and they're just like, fire! There's a fire. Should we leave? No, we're fine.
It's okay.
Yep.
So they go back to Rome. This is the scene where he's not able to get through the gate, and Sister Noelle helps him. I didn't remember Sister Noelle at all. When she showed up, I'm like, you must not be important. I wrote down her name anyway, and then she ends up having these major episode arcs. So what do you guys think of Sister Noelle? Oh, man. That's such a loud sigh.
Can we say plot device in a character?
Yeah, I didn't pay any attention to her until all of a sudden the plot started pointing at her. So, yeah.
Well, I looked at her two big plot devices.
Yeah, absolutely.
her whole I'm in love with you thing was like, felt like it came out of nowhere, was not earned. And they're like, okay, we need... And I was like, oh, you're going to die because they need you to be super tragic, super fast.
Yes.
Super fast.
Yep.
Yeah, we are not going to work for this at all.
Yep.
I hope no one who loves Trinity Blood is listening. You should probably just turn us off now. It's not going to get better.
Or go watch it again. Maybe your opinion will change.
Anyway, Esther is brought in. They meet Katerina. Esther is inducted into the AX because she has all the experience needed.
Yeah.
She murdered one guy. She's now on par with a gunslinging robot and a nanobot infused vampire eater.
Yep.
To be fair, that bothered me. I remember this bothering me the very first time I watched it. Like, what the hell are your requirements for joining this club? Just someone who walks in like, I'm in. All right.
Wait, did you murder somebody? No,
have you ever killed a vampire one time? Okay, that's enough.
Maybe it's just surviving the first few missions is really being a part of the AX. I don't know.
I mean, that's how you get part of Red Squadron, right? You survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill in the empty spots.
Yep.
They meet the professor. We talk more with Noelle. She has the ability to see your feelings as colors.
So she sees auras.
Katerina and Abel discuss everything that's been going on. And then we get a flashback of Abel falling from the sky. I remember this is very important to the plot, and I don't fully remember everything that's happening, but I kind of recognize the flashback a little bit. It kind of sets up his backstory of why he's made the promise. He's got an important promise he's made.
There was some lady's head. Somebody decapitated a lady, and that traumatized him. Yeah. That's all I remember from that
someone
scene.
like in a space casket.
Yep.
Yeah, that particular flashback becomes super important late in the next half.
Yeah, I remember it, and it ties into the main villain too. It's literally his whole big backstory, but
yeah.
Um,
And the reason they call them Terrans is because they're from Mars. But anyways, spoiler alert.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Esther gets lost in the garden. She runs into the Pope, who's hiding from his brother and crying.
God.
And she doesn't realize that he's the Pope, so she's like, "Hey, dude, just hang out with me, and I'll take you around the garden, and we'll get out of here." And then they're found by Trace, and he's like, "Why are you hanging out with the Pope?" And then so the Pope has to go back to being the Pope, and she's taken back to meet Abel, and that's really all that happened in this episode. It was kind of a weird one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then episode 6. Guys, any thoughts on Hugh, the assassin priest with a sword and a lot of scars? He looks like a vampire. He actually looks like Alucard from Castlevania, but he's not.
This character feels like he's in the wrong anime, and that he should be the protagonist.
Yeah.
Like,
he gets to be for this one episode.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is one episode all about him. And he seems super badass, but he's not like, that's all we get of him. So
I'm not gonna jump into the plot of this one. Things that are established though: a chair that can show people their memory, other people's memories. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's the same scientist that we're going to meet later or talk about later that is doing the work.
What were the effects of the chair? Just to be clear, if somebody sat in the chair,
they say something like it's going to be rough or painful, but then afterwards she's like, "Is it over? I'm good." And they're like, "Yeah, you're good. You want to come hang out?"
Yeah. That's right. Because I remember they said when they were introducing it, like, it's excruciating, it's horrible. What happens? It's just so horrible. She didn't even get phased. Like, it didn't seem like it bothered her in the least.
It looked like it was a little bit, but like she literally asked the question, "Is it over yet?"
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, all right.
I was thinking like it was gonna melt her mind or something, but
yeah, leave her mentally crippled.
Also, the weirdest "let me view someone else's memories" scene I've ever seen, ever.
As like, if it was on VHS.
Right,
yeah.
and they're like, rewind that, enhance the audio. And I'm like, why in this anime did they, like, let's take the time to show that this works really badly and not just show us the memory. And even the memory is like her staring at the back of a piece of wood chair and can't see anything. I'm like, okay, I'm not really learning much from this. This is really weird way to present
the volume
this.
Increase.
It's like the worst episode of CSI.
Anyway, Hugh kills all the vampires, and then Catalina's mad at him for being so killy. And she's like, he has to come home right now, or else he's going to be in trouble. So he does.
Even though he slaughtered an entire, like, magistrate for this city.
Yep.
Then we get, the Peter Pan episode, where we meet my favorite priest for one episode length. The character Leon. Abel goes for help on a mission. He goes to get the priest Leon because apparently Gunslinger is not available right now. It's a priest who's in prison, and they're like, "Look, you do missions for us, we will reduce your sentence." And I was like, "That's such a cool concept. I love this idea of like he doesn't get to choose his missions. He's forced to do the crappy ones, or he's basically their Suicide Squad." And other than and apparently I understand this isn't quite in the English dub, but in the English dub, all it is that he's now let out all the time and just complains about how prison was better, and that's his whole shtick. He's cool in this one episode, and then his shtick is just like, "I'm the priest from prison." What?
Okay. Yeah, it was really weird. I don't remember there being very many references, if any, to him, preferring prison over being free and fighting. But it was weird to me that he was free. I kept thinking, is that the guy? And they call him Dandelion in the sub. And I kept thinking,
It's the wrong show.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I kept thinking, is he still free? Is this a different mission that he's getting another 20 years off? Or like I don't understand what's going on. Was that just to make me like him because it's different, and then you just completely drop this too? That's kind of what it seemed like to me.
Jason, how about you?
Yeah, he was fun. His weird spinny ring thing.
Yeah, he like throws bracelets or something.
That was the weirdest weapon ever.
And they never showed how it's effective.
It's
like
super effective.
He just throws them, and then apparently things happen.
Yeah.
And like the whole fairy island had so much potential, and they completely dropped the ball. Like, if they had more, like, the kids being, duplicitous and like people disappearing and like they don't know why people are disappearing, but the kids are innocent kind of thing. I think that would have been neat, but then it turned into Leon becomes best buds with one of the little kids, and then they never see him again. Okay.
Yeah.
There's another plot I'm gonna skip over. There's an island of fairies, and at first I was like, "Oh, fairies! We're gonna get some other species besides vampires, some other monster. That'll be cool." But no, they're just vampires with fairy wings.
There were regular kids that were turned into vampires with wings.
Artificial, yeah.
No, there were regular vampires that were turned into.
Oh.
I got the impression that they were kids that were human that were artificially turned into vampires and happened to get wings.
Well, the important part of this whole thing is that the scientist is a really bad dude, but he's also really smart.
And it's the same scientist.
Right.
He might have molested a little girl.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Yeah.
Heavily insinuated.
Also, she seemed to have a hive mind over the other fairies, even though at times they seemed to display their own personalities.
Only with the Tinkerbell system.
That was the Tinkerbell system. It linked their minds up.
To where she could command them like a hive mind.
That's why when he blew it up, she's like, "Oh, I lost control of them." And he's like, "Yeah, now they're free." But I'm like,
which I'm glad he had a rocket launcher in his back pocket.
Yeah, good thing.
He also is rocking the deep V.
Too bad he didn't like spin it and then just throw the rocket launcher.
I really did like the ending of this because instead of killing them, they decided to show mercy and they basically put them on a boat and send them to the Empire to live. And
didn't they just send the two? And one of them is human?
They sent all of them.
Oh, no, really? He's a failed project. So he's still got the genes in him. He's just a failed version.
Wouldn't that mean he's still human?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It
doesn't matter. No, I want to call out this joke because it's very funny.
Oh, okay.
They turn in their invoice for paying to ship these kids, and they're like, "What was this for?" Oh, I don't remember. Well, then you have to pay for it. Oh God.
Yeah, that was pretty
good. There is a joke that I found funny was his reoccurring. I took a vow of poverty, and he always needs money, and he swore to always be poor.
13 teaspoons of sugar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that for the nanobots, or is that just because he needs calories?
I assume it's calories.
Okay. Back to plot that matters, I think. Yeah, there's a palace that has been collapsed randomly, and they send Abel to investigate. And Sister Noelle is like, "I'm going too because I'm in charge of finances, and you always, you wasted all that money, so now I have to supervise you." They go and investigate. There's literally nothing they can figure out. There's no clues. And I'm like, okay, I guess we gotta go home. And she's like, "Nope, this is our vacation. We're blowing a ton of money." And he's like, "Wait, I thought that was the opposite." She's like, "No, I lied."
So there's so much that upset me about this one. And it kind of paid off as far as Abel not wanting to stick around because he's like, one, he didn't want to go in the first place. And two, he wanted some rest. But like, he picks up that book and the book immediately crumbles in his hand. But then he just buys the investigator's report that doesn't fall within his persona of what's being built so far. Like that was so irritating to be like, oh, it's over. Let's go home.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a vacation, and she gets drunk and basically is like, "I'm in love with you. Are you in love with me?" And I'm like, "Aren't you a nun? Isn't he a priest?" I'm very confused about the rules now.
Can I ask a quick question? When they started the trip, they had a big bag of coins. Is that right? It was a big bag of money.
Yes, I believe so.
So why was the holographic nun complaining about their spending if they were using physical currency? How would she even know?
Maybe she's invoicing it.
Invoicing things she
back.
paid for with currency that she had in her hand.
Yes, with her cell phone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Her
Okay.
flip cell phone.
And meanwhile, Catalina calls them and is like, "Hey, there's been a new thing in that same city. This pharmaceutical group has bought this cathedral. I need you guys to check out both of them." So the sister Noelle, who's upset now because the guy turned her down.
Unrequited love.
Right. She goes to the pharmacy and he goes to the cathedral. She finds some information about a super weapon, whereas Abel finds the actual super weapon, which is an organ being played by a vampire, because you gotta
silent noise.
Gotta sell this to Hot Topics. And he's
so
like,
cliche and dumb.
I got really frustrated with this because he starts playing it and like the earth, it causes a giant earthquake. Buildings are collapsing all over the city, and Abel's like, "Oh man, what does that do? What's going on?" He's like, "No, I'm literally destroying the city right now. Give me a minute." And Abel just is like, "Okay, I'm gonna get you though."
And then he points a gun at him and like, "You should stop now."
He
but
lets
I'll
it
never
go on.
shoot at you.
There's so much destruction going on. Abel's just not acting to let this drama build up. He gets attacked by monsters eventually, which slow him down. Then he transforms. He beats the monsters, and he attacks the guy. And the guy's like, "No, I'm done with my song."
Yeah, it's too late.
You're literally at the end of And so the bad guy, whose name is Isaac, runs away, and we find out Noelle was in the earthquake and she has died.
In the most Final Fantasy way possible, by the way, and the way he runs away. He's just like, and then disappears.
Like, jump, 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 disappear.
Yep.
And Noelle's death is really weird too, because we don't actually see her die. She's we just can't find her. But she is dead.
I didn't think she was dead until later. Hugh comes back and he's like, "She died in my arms with this paper."
Yeah, that's so weird. That happens off screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Isaac runs away.
This destroys Abel, so Abel's now moping everywhere.
Yeah, we get a big episode of Abel crying, and then the other AX members are
a letter of resignation.
Yeah. But a big event that happens is Alfonso, the uncle of the Pope, who also tried to become the Pope, and hasn't talked to the family since he lost, shows up and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry that I've been a jerk, and I would like to support the Pope now, and I'm not mad about not being Pope no more. Also, I brought 2 gifts with me while you guys are searching for a super weapon. One's a bell and one's an obelisk." And at one point he has a conversation with Catalina like, "Hey, you know that super secret terrorist group that no one knows about, but I'm gonna talk to you about it?" And she's like, "How do you know about that?" He's like, "I know." And she's like, "That checks out." All right.
I love how she confirms it too. She's like, "You know about that?" It's like, "Oh, you are the best general ever."
Yep.
Abel has gone missing, even though Esther finds him a few times. And basically, the professor's like, "We've checked out every bell in the city. We know Rome is being attacked by the same super weapon from the last episode. And they've checked every bell in the city." And they're like, "Wait, we haven't checked the brand new bell that just came in from Alfonso. So let's all go check that out." And they go tell Catalina so Abel comes and he resigns, and Catalina's like, no, you can't. He just walks away like, yeah, I can. And then they're like, hey, we got to stop this bell. It's probably the bell. And so they go, and this is where stuff really hits the fan, because Francisco's like, how dare you tell our uncle his bell is a super weapon? And the uncle's like, no, look, I can ring it. And he rings it, and nothing happens. So they arrest Catalina. She literally gets arrested for this. And we find out, like, the AX is going to be disbanded. Leon is like, why did I even come out of prison? That's an actual line from this episode.
Oh my god.
And then we see Alfonso meet with Isaac, and they're like, yeah, we're in this together. And the bell, it's a good thing we had that bell as a decoy, and the obelisk is the actual weapon.
Which was not super obvious.
Which they find out because, like Jeremy said, Hugh shows up with the plans for the obelisk that he got from, well,
Dead
like,
Noel.
Yep. Oh, okay, we know what to do now. And then, okay, so Alfonso goes and talks to Catalina while she's jailed, and he's like, hey, just so you know, I'm a terrorist, and I want you to join me. And she's like, no. And then Abel shows up and attacks him, and he has a shield, like an electric EMP shield thing comes up and saves him. And he's like, actually, I'm not Alfonso. I'm Isaac, the evil vampire, dressed up as Alfonso. And then Alfonso's also doing an evil thing. And I'm like, this is a weird, unnecessary switcheroo.
Yes.
Why couldn't you have Isaac doing the obelisk and have actual Alfonso doing the recruiting? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Isaac and Abel fight. He ends up having to charge up to 80% of his nanobots, which means he grows wings that can shoot lightning. They're like a lightning generator, but they look like wings, and they also operate like wings. He can fly.
Yeah.
He wins the fight, and he's like, okay, Isaac's like, if you want to stop the obelisk, the weapon, I put the control chip in my heart. If you kill me, you'll end it. And Abel's like, no, I promise never to kill.
Besides those like 30 vampires I already did earlier.
Yeah.
Now
Would have been better if he's like, I swore never to kill anyone with a control chip in their heart. You found my one weakness.
Yes.
I can't kill anyone important to this plot.
But the AX, who has to fight a monster that the Pope is apparently able to summon.
It's like a Metroid
Not the Pope,
beholder.
The uncle,
thing.
yeah. They fight the uncle's monster, and then they manage to stop him because one of the priests can turn invisible. Super effective.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I'm flying through it. They had established that, to be fair, but also
It just seems like such a strange power. Like, the others seem like, oh, okay, this is hyperbolic physical ability, but turning invisible, what?
Well, everyone has to have some sort of power,
except for
but they
Esther.
have to be unique.
Yeah, so like Dandelions is throwing things, Hughes is hitting things with a rod, the priests or the professor is like being smart. Our main character has nanomachines, and this guy can turn invisible.
It's not a rod; it's a sword in the rod.
And Esther has a
know.
shotgun.
And Esther has a shotgun, exactly.
And can cry a lot.
And Noel can see emotions and then die.
Isaac runs away, and the final shot of this episode is a blonde man standing over Rome, talking about, "Hey, Abel, good for you, something." Clearly, like master villain making his first appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then what do we do? Oh, good. The murder mystery investigation. So, in Venice, Abel is sent to investigate a murder, and he's partnered with a vampire who's given special permission because it's a vampire murderer, and so the Empire has sent her to investigate. And she hates Terrans, and she's like, Abel's like, we're partners. She's like, don't you ever use that word to me. Also, we have a special... We have another word that we use for that, but also don't say that one.
Yeah.
They investigate the crime scene, and then she's like, "Let's go to this casino." They go to the casino, and the guy running the casino is the murderer. Turns out,
And also a vampiric aristocrat.
yeah, he's a vampire aristocrat. He's the murderer, and he held her hostage at one point in his life.
Yeah, apparently long time ago, like medieval time.
Which would still be post-apocalypse medieval times.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
But centuries have passed. So there's room for that.
Yeah.
They end up having she chases him throughout the city. She has like this lightning bolt wand staff that causes huge destruction. She's like blowing up all of Venice trying to get this guy. He takes a hostage, and Abel ends up saving the hostage, and then she this investigator girl shoots at him. He blocks it with a reflect spell, and it all comes back and kills like 50 people. And Abel, who promised to never let anyone die an episode ago, is like, I saved the one hostage. And you could say like, hey, Abel, he wasn't in control of the situation, but yeah, he could have been. He could have gone to 80% nanomachines and done something about this and not let 200 people in the streets of Venice just die when he vowed 10 minutes ago to me, because I watched these in order, and I just finished last episode, that he would never let anyone die. I was confused. When Jeremy complains about inconsistencies like this, I'm usually like, that doesn't matter. But this is huge. This is such a big one.
Yep.
And then, like, he got hit by some of the shrapnel, so he ends up in the hospital.
He goes to the hospital, and then he's like, no, I'm still going to help you. So she's like, all right, you're cool. But then they're like, no, you were responsible for, like, a ton of deaths and destruction. You're leaving. And then Abel's like, no, she's not. We're going to go after this guy. Because apparently the Pope is in town. I'm going to... 1 second.
Oh, here we go.
We are on like our 4th or 5th Pope murder plot to start a war, and they're like, let's just send the Pope to Venice alone.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. They catch the bad guy and they kill him.
The Pope is bait at this point. He's got to be bait. They must know what they're doing.
Also, they do kill the bad guy, for one thing. Like, he shoots him, but then she goes back and reports to the Queen of the Vampire Empire, like, he died. So Abel killed him.
Abel shot and killed him then.
And then
so much for his vow.
And then this queen is like, or the Empress is like, oh, Abel, you haven't changed. And so she knows Abel.
And also, like, does that mean this lady got away with murdering like 400 people in the streets of Venice?
Yes, she did.
No consequences whatsoever. Let's not deal with that.
Abel's cool with it. He's never going to let anyone die starting now.
Except for the guy he shot.
At the end of every episode, he makes his vow again.
I'm so mad at this.
When the plot demands it.
Yeah.
It just would have been fine if he didn't say that. Like, it's fine that people are dying around him. That's fine. He's doing his best.
Yeah.
But why did they... It felt so like we have to say this because Trigun said this. But Trigun, that's literally like the central theme of the whole anime. And they work so hard to make it work. Okay. We have one more plot line. This one drives me crazy. Because of a vampire named Eon. If you thought the Pope was bad, this guy's English voice actor was like, his voice cracks every time he yells, and he always yells, and it was rough.
And this character, I swear, dies like 15 times in the span of 3 episodes. Still makes it out alive.
Yep.
All right, so Catalina is in like Morocco or something. Like it looks very Middle Eastern or Arabian, that kind of stuff. So they still call it the Vatican. Basically, her brother calls her and is like, "Hey, watch out for assassins." And then at the same time,
in case you let your guard down,
there is a bombing in the building and a vampire messenger who are showing up. And it isn't a coincidence that those two things are happening, but they are kind of separate. the vampire messenger comes in and he's like, I have a message. And then Gunslinger walks in and is like, oh, vampire terrorist, shoot. And hits him. And this messenger runs away. And this is Eon.
My favorite part about this whole thing is I have this extremely important message I need to get to you. But before I do, I'm going to rake your arm behind your back and threaten you and tell you how much of garbage you are because you're Terran.
And also,
Hold on. I thought you were here to deliver a message.
He's so aggressive about it, too. He's like, don't you speak to me, you filthy Terran. Also, I have a message for you, ma'am. Would you like to receive it?
Makes no sense.
So yeah, this character has been sent by the Empress of the Vampires to bring a message to Catalina about peace. And
except for when he's going to attack her to give her the message.
His best friend vampire comes and finds him and like helps get some of the poison from the silver bullet out and takes him to get care.
Yeah, like scenes that are almost and they're like the scenes are almost designed to give like weird insinuations and creepiness. Like
yes, they were, but the English dub dialogue was very obvious to steer away from that. Like they were very much like he's like my brother. All right, yeah.
Oh god, that's funny. We didn't find out that kind of brother relationship thing until much later in the sub, if I remember correctly. So this was just like, what's going on?
I did like how he could suck out the damage done by silver, like you could have, trying to do it for a snake bite. Like, what is happening?
Like,
fine.
Like, was.
And if silver is this poison, isn't him like putting it into his mouth gonna hurt him?
That's what you want to talk about right now? All right. Abel is brought in because he obviously knows the Empress, and they're like, hey, we know she wants to send us a message. We need to get this message. It's super important. And then he talks to Esther, and she's like, yeah, let's go bust a cap in these vampires. I want in. And Abel's like, no, you stay here. I got this. You just need to stay out of this. Meanwhile, Esther then tracks down the vampires, runs in with a shotgun, and tries to murder him, and they have a fight. She gets stopped by his name is Radu.
Yeah.
And then Abel stops Radu, and then Abel slaps Esther across the face and says, "You're dumb."
Yeah, total B slap. Just
so did not fit his personality.
Right? This is the same guy who's like, could I please have a sandwich, ma'am?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
they didn't know who he was supposed to be.
I don't know. I thought that scene was fairly appropriate because it wasn't just that she didn't follow orders. And I think if he'd called it out, it would have been different. This incident, if she had killed him, would have started the war between the two.
Mm.
Like, she was in the midst of basically doing what the Rosencreutz wanted. So I think that's the reason, or at least it should have been the reason he slapped her. Not that she just disobeyed orders.
Oh, I agree with the slapping part. She totally deserved it. It just didn't seem like it was a character consistent thing to come from him. He just didn't seem like the right person to administer it.
I agree with that. You know, you should never hit me. Yeah, so basically, at the same time, the Inquisition is now coming because they're coming for the assassin who they think Eon is. And so Abel's like, I will stall the Inquisition soldiers. You guys go into the secret tunnel that's obviously in this room and go down it. Esther, you take them. And she's like, me? He's like, yeah, you're going to do this. And then Abel goes outside and he plays pogo on top of the Inquisition's heads until their commanding officer shows up, and his name is Petro. And he's like, I'm gonna fight this guy, but I respect him. I
hate this guy.
I love his weapon though. I really love the two spinning gear halberd thing.
Yeah.
I'm just really confused why Abel walking out and saying, hey, I need to deliver these guys to Katerina because of diplomatic relationships. Why that didn't just diffuse the whole situation, but
Exactly.
Especially when it does later. He literally
Yeah.
says later, I need to get this guy as a message for Catalina. And the guy's like, oh, well, that's a different story then. but here he's like, nope, you gotta die.
he really wanted to fight someone from AX.
Yeah, he always wanted to fight an AX member. And it wasn't like you're evil. It was kind of like, we're both trying to do the right thing and we must.
He called him a heretic.
Oh, that too, yeah. Infidel? Didn't he call him an infidel?
He didn't call him an infidel because he ended up praying for him at the end because he thought he was he thought he was doing the right thing in his eyes, but he was blaspheming God, kind of thing.
Abel gets knocked into the ocean when they destroy the balcony in the fight.
An entire section of the balcony supposedly falls on him. We don't see it happen, but that's the implication.
Mm-hmm.
Then we come back to Esther and the two vampires. They come to a cave with a boat. And
Can I ask one non-important question? He got grazed in the shoulder. Why is he having a hard time walking?
The kid?
Did he
Yeah.
get grazed in the shoulder? Because didn't she say like a couple inches to the left and it would have hit your heart?
She kicked him in the arm, and that's where the wound was, where the bandage is.
Yeah. Oh, I guess he did pull a bullet out of his shoulder, but he pulled a bullet out of his arm. Why is he having a hard time walking?
Especially
poison.
this late.
The poison?
Yeah, it could be the silver poison. Then what good was sucking the blood out? Like, that didn't help.
Anyways, doesn't matter. Let's move on.
We don't know the toxicity of silver, guys, but clearly it's okay for your mouth.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
And then we get this scene where Leon and Esther are super racist to each other and then start becoming friends. And then Radu comes back and in the
With a
most
gun.
obvious thing ever. Guys, if your friend ever says, yeah, by the way, there's terrorists around and they know about what you're doing, and don't you think they're right? Don't you think the terrorists are kind of cool? Your friend is the terrorist. Just so you know.
Yeah, super obvious.
At one point, Eon even says, the only two people who know about this were me and him. Come on, man. You're right there.
Obvious terrorist is obvious.
Radu comes back with a gun. And not only could he not figure it out, Eon doesn't believe it for like the rest of the anime. Like he sees him with a gun pointing at him. He's like, what's happening? Are you like a bad guy? But the Inquisition gets there and they kill Radu, which is what I wrote in my notes because it was very obvious he died.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then Abel comes in on a boat and grabs Leon and Esther and they drive away. But Pedro jumps on the back of it, but he drops his weapon and they tell him, look, we're just trying to deliver a message. He's like, well, all right, then I'm just going to come along. And he sits down.
He's got a crazy backpack jetpack. And he just...
I think I remember this from the first time I watched it. I remember really liking the Inquisitors' like whole style, like their paladin, rocket pack. You know, I thought they were cool. They remind me of like Warhammer.
Yeah, a little bit.
That is cool. Yeah, my favorite part was when they were sitting in the boat and he was like jetting over, and they were like, "They fly now? They fly now? They fly now?"
Ah, Jeremy with the dig.
Anyway, this is one of the things that I absolutely hated about this guy, was that there is a scene that comes up very quickly after this where the vampire boy says, I know you want to kill me because I'm a vampire, so I want to ask you to be my shield, but will you basically be my shield? And then later the guy's like, well, I did promise to be your shield. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, this guy wanted you. Did you guys not see that? Is it?
I did. I just didn't. I didn't find it confusing.
Oh, it was irritating to me because the guy was clearly like being part of the Inquisition. Their whole thing was we take out the vampires, we never protect them. Like we get the impression that the Inquisition is more like the traditionally like really negative connotation of Inquisition in our history, right? And so I didn't get any connotation that the Inquisition would ever consider protecting vampires. Like they're basically the exterminators, is what I got.
So
Right.
And so
I agree.
this guy is super cheesy to say, oh, okay, after this very short period of time that we've had together, now you can actually talk to me as if I'm going to be a shield for you, this creature that I have been planning to exterminate and have exterminated all throughout my history in this job.
And to
it
be
just
fair,
didn't seem like enough time was given.
He plans to still kill him.
So, and here's the thing. He is the commander of the Inquisitorial department, right? But
Sure.
under the other dude, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So why is he hiding from his own troops?
Yeah.
Why doesn't he step out and say, "Hey, come here, go get the other girl," and then like she comes over and he's like, "Hey, this vampire is actually really important to diplomatic relationships. We need to escort him."
Now that's fair.
Story over. Story
That's
over.
what I mean, though. It's all contrived. His behavior is his behavior is completely contrived.
The only thing I don't agree with you on, Jeremy, is that they did show that his character is super honor bound. Like when he fought Abel and like the other soldiers stood back up, he's like, "No, this is a one-on-one fight. If you even touch him, I will kill you. This is about men versus man. Whoever's faith is stronger. Like, don't you get involved." So I could see him, and he even says like after I will be your shield. I will follow your request. I have issues with it, but afterwards I'm going to kill you, and afterwards you two go to jail.
Yeah.
But that he gave his oath and that he would follow that through to, because he said he would see this through, and so he's going to stick to that.
Because he obviously saw the importance of the diplomatic hand that was being given here.
Yeah, see, in the sub, I don't remember him ever saying, "I will be your shield." I remember is the kid said, "I won't ask you to be my shield because I know that you won't."
Oh, the dub was very clear that he would be.
Yeah, I know. In the sub, he did not agree to do it. And then afterwards, he says, "I did agree to do it." And I'm like, what? So you just kind of had a change of heart during the middle of combat where you're like, "Oh, I will protect you. I'll take this blow from a tank to protect." Where did that come from?
It's very, very different in the dub. In the dub, he asked him to be his shield and his sword or hammer. Halberd. And at first he's like, "I hate you. I hate what you just asked, but I'm going to see this through." But also Eon said, "If you do this, you can have my head as payment. Like I literally will let you kill me if you just get me to deliver this message." And he's like, "Okay, but I'm holding you to that. And then you two are going to jail. I'm sticking to my convictions, but I will do this honor bound oath for you." So then when he shielded him and died for him, he was like, "Hey, I promised. This is what I swore I'd do." So it made sense in the dub, but obviously it sounds like they fixed it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Martial law is declared by the Inquisitors on the city, and then we see that Radu is alive and Diedrich.
Oh, and the airships start opening fire on the city.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh, yeah. And
that's the Puppet Master's work. The Puppet Master wants the Inquisition to take over the city. They also, they mentioned the Iblis. What is the Iblis in this episode? I never figured it out. It's the name of the arc is the Iblis, and then each episode has their own name. And Puppet Master walks in and he's like, "Why didn't you use the Iblis?" He's like, "Well, because they needed it to look like like they're killing each other. If I did that, they'll know it wasn't." And then I don't remember what the Iblis was. Was it the tank?
Yeah, it must have been.
Okay. So yeah, Puppet Master is like, "Hey, by the way, I have zombie vampires who will get to help," and they go after Catalina, which doesn't work out.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, he's Puppet Master. The airships and the tank both come under control of the vampires, and they start firing on the city. And that's when Eon's like, okay, we got to go deliver the message now. Now that it's dangerous out there, we should go.
Yeah.
And then they put Esther in charge of driving, and she drives them right in front of apparently the Iblis, the tank. And and Eon's like, oh my god, it's my friend. He's still alive. And they're like, dude, he's the terrorist.
Yeah.
And he opens fire at them. Petro gets hit. I'm assuming he's dead, but I'm probably wrong. In 2 episodes, he'll be like, no, I was fine.
Yeah.
Eon also gets hurt. He's laying in a pool of blood. Abel transforms, goes to his 80% form, starts sucking up Eon's blood.
Right.
Takes a shot that loses his arm, uses Eon's blood to fix that arm, and then decides to destroy the 2 airships and the tank, kills everybody, and then goes over to Esther, and Esther's like, you're a monster! And he's like, oh, forgive me for my sins!
Oh, God.
And then we see that Eon tells Catalina that the vampires and the Catholic Church need to work together to stop these terrorists. And Abel tells Esther he's sorry, he's a monster.
Yep.
Not that it matters, but it's actually a Goliath tank. It's not a Iblis.
What is the Iblis then?
Is that the airship, maybe?
No, because the airships
no.
are just airships.
Oh.
To be fair, I didn't always pay the super most attention to what was going on, but
Yeah,
I
me
feel like
too.
it should have been a little more obvious in a 3-episode arc called the Iblis to not only have it just name dropped once, like, why didn't you use the Iblis? We're not talking about that. Shouldn't we? All right.
Oh, Iblis is a type of angel who is created from fire.
That does not make things clearer, sir.
Yeah, I don't recall that making an appearance. So.
Okay. We have reached the end of the episodes that we have watched. We have also reached the end of the episodes we will watch.
Yes.
So let's go to our final reviews. Jason, you picked it. What are your thoughts?
I kind of laid it out already. It wasn't good, but I mean, it wasn't terrible. I have some nostalgic feelings for it. I can give it a 2.
Okay, Jeremy, how about you?
I gotta give it a 1. This is hard. I was not fond of the animation style for most of it. The faces were really annoying. All the things that we've already complained about, and also just I don't know. It tried to be Vash and then it failed, and that's oh man, that I don't know. That seems like it should get more of a penalty to me than just like, oh, you tried to tell a story. It's like, no, you tried to copycat and you did a really bad job.
I've
yeah,
never
1.
seen Vash, so I think that's why my opinion is not as bad.
You've never seen Trigon.
You need to see Trigon.
Okay,
Is that our next anime?
No, that's
No.
like a 50. Yeah, it's a big one.
It's pretty big, yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 1. Honestly, it probably is a 2. It's probably more of a product of its time, and it probably deserves a little bit better. They were probably cutting some ground with that CG work they were doing, but my enjoyment of it was not there. I had a hard time watching it. I had a hard time paying attention to what was going on. It didn't grab me. I've been thinking about like good anime. I've been watching anime that have just like sucked me in. The Volleyball one, Promised Neverland.
Oh yeah.
There's stuff that sucks me in. This has just pushed me away. I couldn't get into it, so it's a 1 for me. Our next anime. Jeremy's very excited. I think he thinks he's trolling. I feel like he found the perfect. I feel like you found the perfect. This is legitimate and a troll pick at the same time.
Yes.
This
I'm
is
so excited.
This is an older anime that none of us have seen, as far as I know,
Nope.
called Princess Tutu, which is about a bird that becomes a ballerina, a duck that becomes a ballerina, a human ballerina.
Yep.
But From what I understand, it's supposed to be quite good. It definitely is not in our wheelhouse for genres,
No.
but that also makes me excited. That's kind of what these weird picks are for. And Jeremy always brings the change. So Princess Tutu, we're only watching what Jeremy has told me is called the first half, but it's just the first 13 episodes.
Yeah.
So we will be watching that and then discussing that in 2 weeks.
Cool.
Okay. If you would like to comment on Trinity Blood and tell us how your rose-tinted goggles are not wrong, you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or email theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and we will get to it. And I hope everyone had a great holiday season. Christmas, Hanukkah, and New Year's. All of it was great. Hope it was fantastic. Let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.